I first want to thank the Scotts Valley City Council for scheduling a hearing on this matter. It's very important to the community. I represent a new group that we formed, Scotts Valley Neighbors Against Smart Meters. This organization was formed because my girlfriend and I were alarmed at PG&E's plans, and I heard some initial concern and alarm about the meters, and I didn't think that they were that serious. However, after looking into the issue more closely, we are very alarmed. And I just want to make it clear at the outset that we're not opposed to technology. Many of the benefits of smart meters that Mr. Devereaux outlines are very beneficial. We need to tackle climate change. We need to do that. However, why not roll this program out on a wired basis? Why does everything have to be wireless, given that the science in terms of health and safety is not firmed up and is not certain? I guess the basic question I'd like to ask is, at a time when the health impacts of electromagnetic radiation from cell phones and Wi-Fi are increasingly in question, do we really want to install millions of new radiating devices throughout our communities? And I heard Mr. Devereaux say that the World Health Organization says that EMF is completely safe. Well, I went to their website, and it says that electromagnetic radiation is a possible carcinogen. Yes. It's under investigation. So I'm not sure where PG&E is getting their information from, but there's an increasing number of studies that show some link between cell phones, Wi-Fi, and things like brain tumors and DNA disruption. So this is not just some crackpot theory. 2 weeks ago, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed a requirement that every cell phone sold in the city and county of San Francisco has to have the specific absorption rate, which is a measurement of the radiation put out by a cell phone advertised at the point of sale. And this law was brought about by a woman named Ellen Marks, whose husband has a brain tumor and has used cell phones heavily throughout his life. And this is increasing evidence of a number of communities throughout the state being very concerned about FCC regulations not being sufficient to protect our health and safety. There's a growing list of cities and counties throughout the state of California calling on the California Public Utilities Commission to enact a moratorium on smart meters. This includes the Utility Reform Network, State Senator Dean Flores, 5th District Supervisor Efrain Carrillo, San Francisco, and recently Santa Cruz County supported this. The towns of Sebastopol, Cotati, Fairfax, Camp Meeker, as well as the EMF Safety Network. And last night, the city of Berkeley was added to that list after some expert testimony on the impacts of radio frequency emissions. We've just started this campaign. It's sort of a last-minute campaign. We've learned more and more about the impacts of this form of radiation. We were out on Saturday, and in only 4 hours, we collected 72 signatures, 55 of which are residents of Scotts Valley, and we intend to collect many more. Virtually, almost without exception, people were very, very concerned about this and very, very supportive of a moratorium. About 95% of the citizens of Scotts Valley want you to go to the California Public Utilities Commission and request a moratorium. I think there's a certain level of arrogance that PG&E is displaying in this rollout of smart meters. They say, cell phones and Wi-Fi and microwave radiation is ubiquitous. Well, not everyone has cell phones, and not everyone has Wi-Fi, and many people, including my girlfriends, have looked at the studies, looked at the science, and said, I do not want to take the risk with my health. It's just not worth it. And to say, you have to have this in your house, you cannot opt out, you cannot make a decision about what kinds of radiation you allow in your house, that is a violation of privacy, to be quite frank. And not only the EMF emissions from the meters, but also a number of other problems have been reported. These include reports of skyrocketing bills, security and privacy issues, interference with healthcare equipment, safety issues. There have been a number of smart meters that have actually caught on fire. More than 1,000 meter readers throughout the state of California are losing their jobs during a time of increasing unemployment. I think PG&E miscalculated, to be quite frank, on the smart meter issue, just as they miscalculated on Prop 16. And we should not have to pay the price for their miscalculation. And just to take another look at the FCC regulations, because PG&E is saying that those FCC regulations are safe and they guarantee our safety. The FCC regulations in place for electromagnetic radiation they only consider thermal effects of radiation. That is to say that they look at the human being on a telephone, a wireless telephone, sort of like a hot dog in a microwave. And I'm not a hot dog. I'm a human being. I've got living tissue, and there are a number of studies that show non-thermal effects from radiation, such as DNA breakdown, cancers. This is not just a crackpot theory. There's also no evidence that PG&E has studied chronic radio frequency exposures on a 24/7 basis, or the cumulative impact of dozens of smart meters in a very small location, for example, on an apartment building. These meters will be installed next to where we sleep, where our children sleep, in some cases less than 2 or 3 feet. I have a question. I'm not sure if PG&E can respond to this, but I'd like to know what is the peak EMF emissions from the device, because what they're reporting in comparison to cell phones and microwaves is an average of emissions over half an hour. But in terms of non-thermal effects, there's a lot of concern about peak emissions. So perhaps Mr. Hertz would like to tell us what the peak emissions, that spike that occurs when the data is conveyed to the power pole. What is that peak level of EMF?
Why don't you keep going and use up your time?
Okay.
Thanks.
Maybe the council can find out afterwards. We still haven't heard this from PG&E. I think scientific studies show evidence of biological harm from radio frequency exposure at levels far below the FCC safety standard. These also include DNA breaks, sleep disturbance, memory loss, headaches, chest pain, heart palpitations, cell stress, premature aging, learning impairment, fatigue, reduction in melatonin secretion, and cancers. These are all documented and cited peer-reviewed studies. Now, when the federal government fails to protect our health and safety, the responsibility for that falls to the state, the county, and ultimately the city. We don't want to be here talking with you about radio frequency safety because it's not your jurisdiction. But when the FCC fails to protect our health and safety and fails to take peer-reviewed science and apply it to protect our safety, unfortunately, we have to ask that the city councils and counties step in to protect our safety. Some more peer-reviewed studies of these health impacts. Interphone, which is a major long-term international study, found a link between glioma, which is a brain tumor, and cell phone usage. If you're more likely to use your cell phone on the right-hand side of your brain, of your head, you're more likely to get a brain tumor on the right-hand side of your head. There's clearly a connection here. In Europe, in 2009, the European Parliament passed the EMF resolution calling for caution on the use of and expansion of EMF, particularly radio frequency from wireless technologies. Since 2000, several thousand doctors have signed the Freiberger Appeal, saying one can no longer evade these pulsed microwaves. They heighten the risk of already present chemical physical influences, stress the body's immune system, and can bring the body's still functioning regulatory system mechanisms to a halt. Pregnant women, children, adolescents, elderly, and sick people are especially at risk. So I'd just like to close in encouraging the council to take a precautionary approach to new technology. The government has said over the past that things like asbestos, mercury, cigarette smoking, nuclear energy, MTBE in gasoline, lead in paints and pencils are safe for our children and our communities, and these have later been found to be extremely dangerous. We need to approach new wireless technologies in a precautionary way, not roll them out without limit through the community. So we'd like to ask that you support the EMF Safety Network's petition to the CPUC based on electromagnetic radiation. We'd like to ask you to support the City of San Francisco's petition to the CPUC based on billing inaccuracies and overcharging. And I would like to end by saying that the Scotts Valley City Council can, in fact, put a stop to this if it feels like it's not healthy and safe for the citizenry. According to the PG&E franchise, with the City of Scotts Valley. It says that the franchise to construct, maintain, and use poles, wires, conduits, and appurtenances necessary or proper for transmitting and distributing electricity to the public for any and all purposes in, along, across, upon, under, and over the streets within city is granted to grantee. Nowhere in this franchise agreement does it say the ability to use public land, which is owned by the City of Scotts Valley, for the radio frequency transmission of data by electricity consumers. So again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you giving me 10 minutes. I'm sure there are other people with similar concerns, but this is a major issue of health and safety, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. If there's anybody else who'd like to speak, please come on up to the